Hi, this is Regina Favors with Overcoming Setback Inspiration. And so I want to approach this topic uh, with the concept of instruction. And so we have Proverbs 8:33, hear an instruction and be wise and refuse it not. Um, this is something that I struggled with, and I think many people struggle with, whether you are Christian or a non-Christian. We struggle with instruction because even though we have past experiences living with instruction from the time we are in grade school all the way to high school, and then possibly college, and then college graduation, and then we get into the workforce, jobs, 2-year entry-level positions, and we are learning all about instruction. And you would think that because of all of the exposure to instruction that we would be much better at actually obeying instruction. But I think that we come with the idea of obeying instruction from a place of offense. We are defensive when it comes to instruction, and maybe because we have dealt with someone who doled out instruction but with manipulation, or who doled out instruction with haste, or who doled out instruction with frustration, anger, etc. Right? But if you can take your mind off the person who is giving you instruction, whether it's in the right way or the wrong way, and understand that instruction, that in order for you to move forward, you have to obey an instruction. There's no way around it. If you think about the platoon who are instructed by the instructor, the platoon instructor, when he says or when she says forward march, if you don't forward march, you stay in one place. Get the visual in your head that if you don't move forward, you are in one place, right? But when he says forward march and you move forward, or you forward march, you advance. Now, advance has multiple levels. I'm not talking about advancement right now. I'm talking about advance in terms of moving forward. When he says right flank march, you right flank march. When he says left flank march, you left flank march. When he says about face, you about face. Those are different types of instructions within a particular type of context. You can have instructions on your job. The job requires you to do X amount of things by a certain time in the day. If you are in a sales job, there's a quota system, right? Sales quota system. That's instruction. You have to meet, or you have to sell X amount of product in an hour or in a day. That's an instruction. And when you don't sell those products within an hour or within a day or within a month or within a quarter, you can expect to be fired. Now, there may be systems in place where they allow for a suspension without pay or something like that. And then they allow for remediation, meaning that you did not do something or you missed an understanding about something, and you have to remediate or retrain. That's all instruction as well. That retraining is instruction. And if you don't, then you can be terminated for good, right? The teacher gives you instructions on how to do an assignment. And you say, well, I'm going to do what I want to do because I feel like I know this better. Well, the teacher has been trained in how to teach. Just because you may have an understanding about something, a quicker understanding about something over your peers, does not mean that you automatically understand how to represent that information within your paper. That you can be a great orator, you can be a great person who can recite something, recall something, but there is a strategy to writing it within an academic paper, writing it within a book, a scholarly work, or any other type of medium that you want to use. You have people I notice on YouTube who now want to be like a pseudo psychologist, but they have no requisite knowledge about how to approach coaching or counseling people. They figured out that they can target an audience, talk about a certain gender, a certain race of people, certain issues, celebrity issues or whatever, but they haven't sat down to receive instructions on how to represent or present that information within a YouTube, basically lesson in a sense, right? They give their opinions, but their opinions are not necessarily backed up with supporting evidence. And it is very important that if you're going to represent something, I have I come from an English background where I teach college English. I am also a Christian, and I am currently a psychology graduate student. So when I bring in psychology concepts, I have sat down to learn about those concepts. I have books on those concepts, and I receive instruction on those concepts. So instruction is very important. Instruction requires two things within the scripture here. So be wise and refuse it not. Be wise in this concept, in this particular scripture, I think, means have the courage to obey. That you hear the instruction, and inherent in hearing the instruction is the subsequent task of obeying. But God says, be wise first. That don't automatically assume that it's bad instruction for you or that the instruction does not apply to you. Even if you are amongst, say, a group of employees, and you may be in different departments, and one of the department heads says something, right? Just anything. It can be anything, right? And he's speaking out to the attentive audience. Just because he says it is part of just because the thing that he says is part of one department does not necessarily mean it doesn't apply to you. All of the departments are linked. You all work together. So when you hear a department head giving instruction to another department or to a section of the same department that you're in, right? You should expect that instruction to apply to you, especially if he takes that instruction and places it in a company handbook, then it definitely applies to you. So be wise, meaning that really understand the instruction that you are hearing. Really take some time. That means you need to tune your ear to instruction. You got to get rid of the distractions. You got to get rid of your own attitude towards listening to instruction as if you're just not going to abide by instruction by anyone. You don't take anything from anybody. Well, that's going to be a problem for you if you're trying to move forward in life. If you're not willing to take anything from anybody, which means instruction, then you're not going to get the instruction that you need to move forward. So be wise, and then refuse it not. After you have heard the instruction, you have the courage to obey it, you have thought about it, prayed about it, try to understand it, get some mentoring on it, then refuse it not. Because again, if you refuse it, you can't move forward. And so refusal basically suggests that you're just not going to hear it at all. It doesn't matter if it is good for you. It doesn't matter if it's going to save your life, save your soul, save your mind. You're just going to refuse it. People who are in jail right now or in prison right now are people who refused instruction. And there were instructions at multiple levels before. You didn't just do that one thing and went to jail. A lot of times you have done something in one area for which you were never caught. And you assume that because you weren't caught, you can continue to do that thing. Well, like I say in all my audios, that lesson that you did not pass is down the road. And sometimes that lesson is conducted by an instructor in the prison because you refuse to learn it while you were on the outside. It doesn't make any sense for a person to have to continually go back and forth into prison. Something is going on with their ability to hear instruction. They are just completely not hearing anything. They're not being wise. They're just refusing everything. They have completely turned off their hearing. They don't care what it looks like. They're just going to do whatever they want to do. Well, you can't plan out the consequence. The consequences, you don't know what those consequences are. You can make decisions all day if you want to, but you can't plan out the consequence. Sometimes that one decision that you make to not hear instruction takes you straight to jail. It takes you straight to a mental health hospital. It takes you straight to prison. It keeps you bound, psychologically, mentally, financially. That there was an instruction. I remember my mother telling me when I was a teenager working in high school, and I would buy clothes because, when your mother is buying you clothes, you don't get the kind of clothes you really want. So then when I was able to buy clothes on my own, I bought all of the, fancier clothes. Okay. But she made a point of saying something. She said, if you don't begin saving money, by the time you graduate, all you're going to have is a closet full of clothes and no money saved. And that came true. Now, I have to take 100% responsibility for my life. I do wish she would have set me down and helped me to understand what it meant to save. Sometimes parents can say these things just to say them and not back it up with an actual strategy, because I just didn't know. I was in high school. But if I still find myself in the same situation in 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60 years old, I'm just deciding not to hear instruction at all. And that's a bad thing, because, again, it's going to catch up with me or catch up with you or catch up with anybody who is listening when it really counts. And when it really counts, see, we can do all types of things in our 20s and then bounce back. But somehow when we turn into those 30s and then we get to the late 30s to 40s, we begin to feel our mortality. And now instruction becomes very, very important, because we don't want to die. We think to ourselves, oh, we can die. All this time I've been getting into stuff, and now actually I can die. And so when we begin to feel our mortality, we sort of scramble. We try to go back and reflect on all the stuff we didn't learn and what we should have understood, and all the instruction that was right there for the taking, the opportunities, everything. And now we're trying to accept everything. We're trying to make sure, because we don't want to die early. We don't want to die before our time. We don't want to die a tragedy, etc. But remember, you shouldn't have to wait until your 40s and your 50s and your 60s to get an understanding about something. That instruction was always there for you for the taking. It was always there. People love to say, who end up going into prison, I didn't have anybody. Nobody told me anything. That can't be true. So you mean the little grandma in the neighborhood didn't tell you something? Or the aunt or the uncle, or even your friend who was walking with you from school, who said, man, you don't need to fight that dude. Okay, that's all instruction. No one can ever say that he or she had no one to tell them anything. It doesn't exist. There's too many. If you never heard a person tell you doing drugs is wrong personally, you've seen it on TV. You've seen it on TV everywhere, right? You've seen the consequences of doing drugs. They have done movies on doing drugs. That is a bad thing. So instruction is all around you. Instruction comes through your own conscience. Instruction comes from external resources. And instruction comes from people that you deal with on a daily basis. So hear an instruction, be wise, and refuse it not. Understand what it is that you are receiving in terms of an instruction, but refuse it not if you dare to want to advance and move between levels. So this is Overcoming Setback Inspiration. Hear an instruction and be wise, and refuse it not. Thank you for listening to this audio.